Yo, what is up, guys? It's Guilty. It's been a while since I've done a Quake video. I actually had 2 guide videos done, but then they went and changed everything on me. So they actually had a patch on the 27th and the 28th, which changed a lot of sacrifice. So a lot of the stuff that I talked about in my sacrifice guide video, they ended up, messing with, and so it kind of made everything I said kind of pointless. But I am still doing a sacrifice video for each map, so hopefully you guys will enjoy that, and I'll talk about a couple things. But for this video, we're going to be talking about the patch. So on the 27th, they made a huge patch, and then they did a smaller one on the 28th, which we'll talk about as well. But the first major change they did was to BJ Blazkowicz, which got added during E3. They kind of toned down his damage a bit. Not a huge fan of him still. I think he's still pretty broken. Like, it's a guaranteed kill with your ult. I'm just not a huge fan of abilities that do straight up front damage. So I'm not a fan of sword lags. Like, I just don't like it. I don't think there should be really anything besides quad that, changes the amount of damage you put out. It's just my opinion. I'm not the only one that thinks this way, though. I just don't think it's fair. It's just, especially in an ability, it just doesn't make sense to me. But they did tone him down a bit, which was definitely needed. But the big change that I'm most excited about by far is the change to projectiles. So if you're unfamiliar, projectiles actually had a delay in Quake, which was very obnoxious, especially since it was different per player. So certain players, rockets came out on the right time, others didn't. Mine were really, really slow for whatever reason, and then I watched people stream, theirs were fine. This didn't just apply to rockets, it also applied to the nail gun, it applied to any projectile. So what they did is they made it so that it's, less delay, it's so much better. It almost feels too easy for me, personally. I think it's a little bit too easy. It definitely makes lighter characters definitely feel a lot lighter. Because, it's 100 damage. So people are going to hit more directs, and all that's going to happen a lot more. But I think it's good. I don't think it's a bad thing. It's just, it's different, You've been playing the game, super, aim heavy, not aim heavy, but super hit scan heavy. And now that they've added, rockets to where they, arguably should be at, it's just, you have to kind of play differently. You can't rush around corners as much as you could. Not that you really could anyway, but you definitely could get away without being punished sometimes. So that's a good thing. So that's a huge change. I'm so happy about that. The nail gun actually feels really good. They brought it up to 20 damage, which is awesome. So if you know the plasma gun from previous Quakes, it's basically the new plasma gun, and it's it's awesome. So I'm really enjoying it. So the other change they made, which I'm kind of indifferent about, was to the heavy machine gun. So prior to this patch, you actually did 9 damage unzoomed and 10 damage while zoomed. They now decreased the rate of fire while unzoomed and made it do 10 damage. And when it's zoomed, it's greatly decreased rate of fire, but it does 15 damage. So, I don't really know what to think of this yet. I gotta kind of mess with it more. But basically, and on paper, it should be that we know at the start of a fight you should not zoom, and then when towards the end of the fight, when you just need a little bit more damage to finish them off, you start zooming, because you don't want to start off a fight with really low rate of fire. You're just going to do less DPS. So it's kind of an interesting mechanic. I don't really know what to think yet. I kind of have to play more to give an informed opinion. But I do think this is a good change. There really was no downside to zooming before. It's kind of like the rail. It didn't have any charge at time, but now that they've added a downside to it, it's definitely it definitely needed some kind of downside, because you didn't punish players for zooming. It just made no sense to even have unzoomed aiming, because there was no sense not to do it. So the next change they made, which I welcome very much, but it did screw up my guide video that I was working on, is a change to sacrifice. So prior to the patch, basically what you could do is you could toss the soul into the point instead of having to walk over it to score it to your base. What this does is it now makes it so that when you toss it, you can toss it to your teammate, but you actually physically have to touch the point in order to count it as it's in your base, which is a good thing, because maps like Ruins of Sarnath, you could literally, get it to your point in just 2 passes, provided your team was set up correctly, which 90% of the time it really wasn't hard to do, because it just requires a player standing in the middle of the map, top mid. So basically what you do is you toss it to the middle of the map, and then you throw it into the base, it just made it for really, really boring gameplay, in my opinion, and was kind of stupid, because it didn't really require much teamwork, and I do think the game should require, I think ideally at a high level, passing should be a huge thing. Either that or flag running, or whatever you want to call it. That kind of, moving faster on the map, rocket jumping, all that should play, a huge role. So either one of the 2 things should, play a big role. And on maps like Ruins of Sarnath, it just really made it so that it was kind of gimmicky in a way. So I'm really happy for this change. I definitely think this is a good thing. So it's nice to see that they are, paying attention and making sure the game is playing as intended. So the next change they made was in Duel. I'm not a huge fan of Quake Champions and Duel. I'd just rather have it go back to the way it used to be. But I guess if it's going to have to stay this way, this change is definitely for the better. So basically what they did is they made it so it's best of 5 now. So instead of best of 3, it's best of 5, which is nice, but I really just wish they would up the life limit, maybe add 3 lives per characters, or I don't know. I'm not playing Duel a lot in this game just because I'm not really concerned with Duel in this game because it's so different from prior Quakes, and I'm just not a huge fan of watching it either. You just don't get those intense comebacks, even though they may have happened rarely in past Quakes. You just will never see them again because it's really not. I mean, it's possible to an extent, but there's so much less focus on item control. It's way more about aiming. I'm not saying that if you have the best aimer in the game, he's going to win duels every time, but it's just, if you hit your shots more, you're going to do better. It's just, items don't matter. Map control doesn't matter as much as it did in past Quakes. But enough rambling. I do think the change is good, bringing it to a best of 5 versus a best of 3. It makes the games go on longer and definitely adds more of an intense, feel to the game, but I don't think it'll ever get back to the way it used to be. All right, so the next major change they did was to Clutch. So originally Clutch was just a slow-moving practice aim dummy before. He was so easy to hit, he was so slow, there's really no point in playing him. Now he's a fast-moving, aim dummy. So what they did is they actually added a dodge mechanic to him. So if you're familiar with UT, it's kind of the same thing, except that you can chain those dodges. So in just a couple of jumps, he actually is faster than Nyx, which is really funny to me. That the tankiest character in the game is now faster than the fastest moving, not the fastest moving, but one of the fastest moving characters in the game. But I still think he's pretty useless. I just think he's so huge that it really, at least for sacrifice, it's just he's not where it needs to be. And I think as long as he's that big, and I don't think this chaining jumps is going to stay. I really don't. I don't think it's intended. But you can get to some pretty crazy places with it. But I still think he's still really useless just because of the size of the hitbox. But we'll have to wait and see. Maybe it gets changed. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the patch talk video. I have a feeling I'm going to be doing quite a bit more of these just because the state the game is entering, where I think it's going to go through quite a bit of series of changes. But yeah, I'll be working on the sacrifice video as well. I obviously had to change that because it was actually Runes of Sarnath that I was doing, which if you remove the ability to toss the soul into the point, it actually changes the map quite a bit. So I'm going to be redoing that. I also apologize for this gameplay here. I actually just got a Nixius Revel, which is a mouse. It's kind of shaped like the FK2. It's a little bit bigger, so I guess you would say the FK1. I'm going to be doing a review on that once I'm able to play it more. Obviously, you could tell that my aim wasn't really up to par, but that is because that was one of my first couple of games with this mouse, which like I said, I'll be doing a video, so I'll tell you guys all about that. Going to be doing a video on Corrupted Keep as well, which is a duel map, which they, for whatever reason, have turned into a tedium and deathmatch map as well. I don't know why you'd ever want to play those on that game mode, but anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.